Held live on Thursday, October 10. I'd like to welcome the people who are here with me. To my right, we have Kenneth Tavares, who is the Chair of the Board of Selectmen. Next to him is Melissa Arrighi, and she is the Town Manager, and she is joined by Lynn Barrett, the Director of Finance. That's to my right. And to my left, Kevin Canty is the Chair of the Advisory and Finance Committee, and he is joined by the first Vice Chair, Harry Helms. And also we have the second Vice Chair, Roz Jones. And for anyone who's in the room tonight, if you wish to speak, if you could please come up to the microphone. And the purpose of the preview is to give an overview of the articles that are coming from town meeting. You'll hear from the Finance Committee as to what has been voted and what will be moved as a motion. We hope to provide you with information as to who you can contact. If you'd like more information, we'll be convening town meeting on Saturday, October 19th at 8 a.m. at Plymouth North High School. And if there is a need for adjourned sessions, they will continue the following week. The town meeting will begin promptly. We usually take a morning recess within 2 hours. There'll be lunch served around the middle of the day, and we will continue until we either complete all the articles or adjourn to another session. And we're going to begin with Article 1, where we have no motion. So hearing no motion, there'll be no action. We then move to Article 2A, and we have Mr. Canty, who is the Chair of the Advisory and Finance Committee, moving to amend the votes taken under Article 7A of the April 2019 Spring Annual Town Meeting in accordance with an attached spreadsheet. And town meeting members have been provided the report and recommendations of the Advisory and Finance Committee. It has a brown cover, and I also recommend people to be looking at town meeting time. Copies are available at the library. This governs our parliamentary procedure. We're going to begin with this article by taking the various subcommittee reports together. We have a number of line items. So the first we have would be Subcommittee Report A, and there's an increase by $500,000, a decrease by $20,000, a decrease by $38,000, and a decrease by $50,000. And we'll vote all of this once it's a majority in a roll call. Mr. Canty.
The Advisory and Finance Committee recommends town meeting approve Article 2A. Of the 11 items voted in the affirmative unanimously, most were routine in nature. The largest requests were legal services in the amount of $500,000, which will cover final trial preparations and the ongoing litigation with Veolia over the sewer system failure. The collective bargaining line item is not a new budget item. It was previously budgeted in fiscal year 19, and on June 30th, 2019, it transferred to free cash. Finance Director Lynn Barrett is requesting to transfer it to a fiscal year 20 salary reserve account. The Department of Public Works Facilities line item 38, which was not a unanimous item, was voted 6-4-0 by the Advisory and Finance Committee for the amount of $253,000. This item drew criticism for the continued lack of a plan. The committee has repeatedly requested such a plan in the past, and the committee also criticized that the request did not include a list of any specific projects to warrant the additional $253,000. Further, while a proposed formula for funding in the long term was presented, it was revealed in response to questioning on the topic that this $253,000 was an educated estimation of an appropriate funding figure at this time. The committee did not doubt that additional funding for facilities repair and maintenance was needed, but was frustrated not to see the specifics of what the funds will be used for. The other items under this Article 2A, as voted individually by subcommittee report, were all voted unanimously by the Advisory and Finance Committee membership.
Usually at town meeting, we begin with a presentation from the maker of the motion. In most cases, it'll be the Advisory and Finance Committee. In certain cases, we have motions from the chair from the Board of Selectmen. Now, in this particular case, we'll be taking discussion, and then we'll be voting on the Subcommittee Report A, and thereafter we'll continue with B. You heard Mr. Canty talk about the request for the increase for legal expenses. The Advisory and Finance Committee, along with the Board of Selectmen, the School Committee, and the Planning Board will all have posted meetings at 7:30 a.m. on the morning of town meeting at Plymouth North High School, in order that they might have the opportunity to meet and discuss any new matters that might need to be considered, or new facts for some of the matters at town meeting. So we'd like people to know that there's always the possibility that there may be a change from what you're hearing this evening. We're now going to move on to Subcommittee Report 2. Mr. Canty, Report B, that is. It's an increase by $75,000, an increase by $348,000, a decrease by $186,000, and Mr. Canty.
The Advisory and Finance Committee, in a vote of 10 to 0 to 0, recommends town meeting approve Subcommittee Report B's adjustments to the budget.
And it's a majority vote. It will also be a roll call vote, and this is how we'll continue voting each subcommittee report separately. We then have Subcommittee Report C, which indicates an increase by $12,000, another increase by $14,600. Mr. Canty?
The Advisory and Finance Committee, in a vote of 10 to 0 to 0, recommends that town meeting approve the listed adjustments to Subcommittee Report C's section of the budget.
And for a number of these, in the first item in Subcommittee Report A, the town manager is available. For many of these others, Lynn Barrett, the Director of Finance, would be available to answer questions. We then go on to Subcommittee Report D with an increase of $253,000, an increase of $140,000. Mr. Canty?
The Advisory and Finance Committee recommends that town meeting approve the adjustments to Subcommittee Report D sections of the budget. In regards to the Department of Public Works building maintenance line item, the quantum of vote for that decision was 6 to 4 to 0. And as to the fixed costs, fuel and utilities, all other expenses line item, that was a vote of 10 to 0 to 0 in favor of approval.
We also have the Assistant Director for the Department of Public Works and the Facilities Manager available to provide information and answer questions. Now, moving on in our warrant, we're going to continue with Article 2B. We have a motion from Mr. Candy to amend votes taken under Articles 7B and 7C of the April 2019 town meeting. It's going to be a majority vote and a roll call if it's not unanimous. Mr. Canty?
The Advisory and Finance Committee recommends that town meeting approve Article 2B. Both decreases here are because the actual funds borrowed were less than were originally anticipated.
And we will be having discussion. Article 3 is withdrawn. Article 4, we'd be moving on, and you have a sheet provided for this, a spreadsheet. And Mr. Canty moves that $844,972 be appropriated to pay costs of various capital projects. Again, a majority and a roll call. This includes 4A, 4B, 4D, 4E, 4G to 4M. Mr. Canty.
The Advisory and Finance Committee recommends that town meeting approve Articles 4A, 4B, 4D, 4E, and 4G through 4M. This would appropriate $844,972 to pay costs of various capital projects as shown in the table, and for the payment of costs incidental or related thereto that will meet to this appropriation.
So we'd normally start with the Advisory and Finance Committee. We would go to the Selectmen if they care to be heard. Then I would probably, in most cases, go to a speakers list if anyone has contacted me in advance, and you're welcome to do so. We then would move on to Articles 4A, 4B, we'd move on to Article 4C, in which case we have a motion from Mr. Tavares, and he moves the town vote to appropriate $66,838. Mr. Tavares is deferring to Melissa Riggi.
Yes, and the park superintendent
Will be there.
will be there, and they'll have to answer specific questions about that recreation irrigation system.
Okay. And the Finance Committee would then speak, since they are now moving this. Mr. Canty.
In a vote of 4 to 9 to 0, the Advisory and Finance Committee is not recommending that town meeting approve Article 4C. The committee felt this was not a high-priority project that warranted action now at fall town meeting. The committee noted this project was rated 38th by the CIC. The committee believes this project can wait for spring annual town meeting to compete with other projects for funding in the normal CIC process.
Then we continue with Article 4F, another motion, Mr. Tavares, that the town vote to authorize the treasurer with the approval of the Board of Selectmen to borrow $675,000. We are borrowing, that's going to be a two-thirds vote, a roll call if it's not unanimous. Again, Melissa Riggi.
Yes, Fire Chief Ed Bradley will speak to the replacement schedule for the apparatus.
Mr. Canty.
In a vote of 5 to 8 to 0, the Advisory and Finance Committee is not recommending town meeting approve Article 4F. The committee noted that a new pumping engine was approved at last fall town meeting, and that the CIC ranked this project 36th overall. As such, the committee did not feel this was a high-priority project requiring action at fall town meeting. The committee also noted that unlike the other capital requests from the fire department on the warrant, the proposed funding for this project does not come from the Fire Safety and Prevention revolving account.
And we would entertain further discussion, and then we'd continue on to Article 5, where Mr. Canty moves the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into an agreement for payments in lieu of taxes, a pilot. This is a majority and a roll call. Mr. Canty.
In a vote of 12 to 0 with one abstention, the Advisory and Finance Committee recommends town meeting approve Article 5. Approval of the payment in lieu of taxes agreement here will be for the personal property tax associated with a solar farm development located at 701 State Road.
And we'll continue on. Article 6 is withdrawn. We then will move to Article 7, where Mr. Canty moves the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $988,730.03 pavement management plan debt stabilization. Majority and roll call. Mr. Canty.
In a vote of 11 to 0 to 0, the Advisory and Finance Committee recommends town meeting approve Article 7. Approval of this article will transfer $988,730.03 from free cash into the Pavement Management Debt Stabilization Fund. This amount reflects the amount of the excess fiscal year 2019 motor vehicle excise tax over the amount that was budgeted. This is the same formula that has been utilized since the inception of this program.
Thank you. And Lynn Barrett, Director of Finance, is available on this. We would then be moving to Article 8, and Mr. Canty moves the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the General Court for special legislation to permit retired police officers to work details as specified in the warrant. It's a fairly lengthy warrant. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm combining that with 9, so let's just go to 8. Special police officers should be paid the detail rate applicable to regular full-time officers, but shall not be entitled to any of the town benefits. And Chief Botieri will be available to answer questions. Majority and roll call vote. Mr. Canty.
In a vote of 11 to 2 to 0, the Advisory and Finance Committee recommends town meeting approve Article 8. The police chief has acknowledged that the police department cannot adequately cover the dozens of weekly requests for traffic details with his current staff, and proposed special legislation to allow retired Plymouth police officers to fill this gap. Approval of this article will authorize the Select Board to petition the Massachusetts General Court for special legislation as seen above. The town has worked with the Plymouth Retirement Board and Town Council to craft the final draft of the proposed legislation.
Thank you. When we begin with the Article 9 motions, we'll be hearing from the Chair of the Community Preservation Committee. And we're going to begin with Article 9A, where Mr. Canty moves the town vote to revise the funding sources and thereby amend the vote that was previously taken for the restoration of the 1820 courthouse. Mr. Canty.
In a vote of 10 to 0 to 0, the Advisory and Finance Committee recommends town meeting approve Article 9A. Town meeting approval of this article will transfer $1 million from the fiscal year 2020 Community Preservation Act estimated annual revenues to reduce the amount of CPC 1820 courthouse debt from $1.5 million to $500,000.
Thank you. Article 9B is a motion for Mr. Canty to reduce an appropriation. Mr. Canty.
In a vote of 10 to 0 to 0, the Advisory and Finance Committee recommends town meeting approve Article 9B. Town meeting approval of this article will approve the following budget amendments. It will reduce the annual debt service by $20,022, and reduce the fiscal year 20 CPA budgeted reserve by $185,359.
Thank you. So this evening, we're going through the warrant chronologically. However, town meeting does have the ability to change the order of articles by a two-thirds vote. It's also possible to reconsider an article if someone has voted on the prevailing side, but absent such procedural motions, we'd be continuing on with Article 9C, where Mr. Canty moves the town vote to revise the funding source that related to the restoration of the historic 1898 National Memorial Meeting House. Mr. Canty.
In a vote of 9 to 0 to 1, the Advisory and Finance Committee recommends town meeting approve Article 9C. Town meeting approval of this article will transfer $1 million from the fiscal year 2020 Community Preservation Act estimated annual revenues to reduce the amount of CPC National Pilgrim Memorial Meeting House debt.
Many of these, as you'll see, will be roll call. We will be following electronic voting again. We've had conversations and communication with the vendor. We believe that the issues that we had at the last town meeting will not be repeated. And nevertheless, if at least 7 members question a vote, they can rise, at which time we will take the vote by roll call if it were not originally taken by roll call. Article 9D, Mr. Canty moves the town vote to appropriate various sums in connection with the community provision specifically related to Oak Street School on Oak Street. Mr. Canty.
In a vote of 8 to 2 to 0, the Advisory and Finance Committee recommends town meeting approve Article 9D. Town meeting approval of this article will grant $475,000 from the Community Preservation Fund to the Plymouth Housing Authority for the purpose of constructing 3 deed-restricted affordable housing rental units in the former Oak Street School on Oak Street.
And we would then continue with Article 9E, and we have a motion from Mr. Canty to acquire for open space land containing 53.54 acres located at Roxy Cahoon Road in Plymouth. Mr. Canty.
In a vote of 9 to 0 to 1, with 1 abstention, the Advisory and Finance Committee recommends town meeting approve Article 9D. Town meeting approval of this article will appropriate $850,000 from the Community Preservation Fund for the purchase of approximately 53.5 acres, more or less, of land located on Roxy Cahoon Road, and shown on the assessor's map located in the warrant and Advisory and Finance Committee book.
Article 9E. We now move to Article 9F. Mr. Canty moves town vote to appropriate $35,000 for the restoration of the Town of Plymouth Bell. Mr. Canty.
In a unanimous vote of 10 to 0 with no abstentions, the Advisory and Finance Committee recommends town meeting approve Article 9F. Town meeting approval of this article will cover the total refurbishment of the town bell, including a new rocker, electronic ringing system, and returning the ability to ring the bell by pulling the rope.
Article 10 is withdrawn. We would then be moving to Article 11, where Mr. Canty moves the town vote to appropriate $300,000 for repair and replacement and or upgrade of septic systems. Mr. Canty.
In a vote of 11 to 0 with no abstentions, the Advisory and Finance Committee recommends town meeting approve Article 11. Approval of this article will allow the town to borrow $300,000 through the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust to fund the Title V Betterment Loan Program. These low-interest loans are available to town residents meeting certain income criteria on a first-come, first-served basis to fund septic system replacement or repair. Historically, the funding for this program has been refreshed as funds are depleted.
This is a two-thirds vote. It requires borrowing, and that's why quantum of vote is higher. Article 12 is withdrawn, So we'd move on to Article 13. And Mr. Candy moves town vote to amend the zoning bylaw, and it's in connection with a final report of the planning board on a proposed amendment that's shown in the book. The zoning bylaw changes a 2/3 vote. Mr. Canty?
In a vote of 9 to 2 to 0, the Advisory and Finance Committee recommends town meeting approve Article 13. Approval of this article will amend the zoning bylaw to include accessory dwelling units. This is intended to increase the number of moderately priced long-term rental units in the town and provide an opportunity for rental income to support residents on fixed incomes who wish to remain in their homes.
Thank you. We then move on to Article 14, and Mr. Canty moves town vote to transfer care, custody, management, and control of a parcel off of Rocky Pond Road. 2/3 vote and a roll call. Mr. Canty?
In a vote of 10 to 0 to 0, the Advisory and Finance Committee recommends town meeting approve Article 14. The Open Space Committee has identified this approximately 23-acre tax title property as highly valuable land worth protecting. The property is completely within a natural heritage habitat and a Zone 2 aquifer protection zone, and it abuts substantial existed protected open space held by the Department of Environmental Management, the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife, and Plymouth Conservation Commission.
At this town meeting, I will be joined by Nicole Manfredi, who will be serving as assistant moderator. We'll also be joined by town council Mark Rich, who will be available to us throughout the sessions of town meeting. Article 15, Mr. Canty moves the town vote to accept a document entitled Plymouth Center Waterfront Master Plan Update. It's a majority vote. Mr. Canty?
In a vote of 11 to 0 to 0, the Advisory and Finance Committee recommends town meeting approve Article 15. Approval of this article will accept the updated Plymouth Center Waterfront Area Master Plan, which has been updated to reflect current conditions and future goals for the Plymouth Center Village. The master plan will be used to guide public investments and private development over the next decade.
Thank you. And Article 16, no motion, no action. That then brings us to a petitioned article under Article 17. And we expect to be hearing from the petitioner, but for purposes of the motion, Mr. Tavares moves the town vote to amend Section 203-16 marijuana establishments of the Town of Plymouth zoning bylaws to allow marijuana establishments by special permit in highway commercial districts in accordance with the language included within the final report of the planning board on the proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw. This is a zoning change. It would be a 2/3 vote. Following the motion, we would have a presentation from the petitioner, Brendan Brady, who is not here. I would tell the people in the room that there's no motion at this point that is being offered, so we'll be going forward with this main motion. There's no motion to amend, and at this point, unless there's anything that you want to add for this, I'll go to the FinCom that's just not supporting this. Mr. Canty.
In a vote of 5 to 8 to 0, the Advisory and Finance Committee is not recommending that town meeting approve Article 17. The committee did not believe this proposed change to the zoning bylaws was necessarily the best use of the highway commercial districts, though the potential economic benefit to the town of the marijuana industry generally was noted. The committee also expressed a desire to see how both the town and the marijuana industry do under the current zoning laws before they supported changing them one way or another, particularly considering the current embryonic state of this industry at the present time.
In preparation for town meeting, there are also precinct caucuses. We have a committee of precinct chairs joining us this evening. We have the chair of the committee of precinct chairs, Alan Costello. I'd like to invite you to come up for a moment, and if you have any comments regarding whether or not there are going to be precinct caucuses scheduled between now and town meeting. Mr. Costello.
Yes, good evening. Alan Costello, Precinct 10, Chairman of the Committee of Precinct Chairs. I apologize, I don't have it handy, but we have a full complement of caucuses. All 15 precincts have scheduled their caucuses. Two Caucuses have already been conducted, but in the week leading up to town meeting, there are several caucuses on each of the 4 evenings, Monday through Thursday, prior to town meeting, that you can attend. They should be well attended. I know my caucus, I've had requests by many of the petitioners of the articles, so there'll be presentations. If you haven't had the opportunity to catch the presentation through the Finance Committee or the Selectmen as of yet. So I think as far as the town meeting is concerned, all 15 precincts are going to be well attended and well informed. Thank you very much.
And Mr. Costello, for people watching the live presentation this evening on October 10th, where there are still a number of caucuses to be held, where can they find that information?
That information is on the town website. When you first click on the town website, there's 4 quick response buttons. You'd go for, I think it's titled Information or Quick Information. You open up that, there's several headings. One is Town Meeting Information. Hit Town Meeting Information, and I think all of the current dates, pertinent dates, including tonight's meeting, are listed on that, as well as dates, times, locations for each of the caucuses.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's Alan Costello, Chair of the Committee of Precinct Chairs. And if there's no other business to come before us at this preview, I'd like to thank the people who have joined me this evening. You heard from Kevin Canty, the Chair of the Advisory and Finance Committee. He's supported by his first Vice Chair, Harry Helms, and by the second Vice Chair, Roz Jones. They've been working hard as a committee preparing for town meeting. On the town side, certainly we have Mr. Kenneth Tavares, Chair of the Board of Selectmen, and they've heard all of these articles, and they have taken votes unless we state otherwise. In most cases, the Board of Selectmen are supporting the motion of the Advisory and Finance Committee, except in those cases where we have motions from the Board of Selectmen and not from the Advisory and Finance Committee. He's supported certainly by the Town Manager, Melissa Riggi, Lynn Barrett, who is also here as the Director of Finance. I am Steve Trifletti, Plymouth Town Moderator, and if you have further questions, please don't hesitate to contact any of the people on this panel. Thank you and good evening.